Christmas is Here Again is the kind of film I think I would have loved as a child. Watching it now, despite the fact that I adore Christmas animations, I didn't find it to be that entertaining, but I think for the right audience, it could be pretty good. This was released in 2007. It's directed by Daryl Van Kitters and Robert Zappia, and we have a brilliant voice cast, including Leno, who narrates it. We also have Ed Asner as Krad. I'll talk more about that character in a moment. Madison Davenport voices our protagonist, Sophiana, and Sophiana is a little girl with a little walking cane who lives in an orphanage. We're meant to feel a lot of emotions for her, and I think it's fairly easy to feel for her, and she decides to help this little elf look for Santa's sack. And it's not just any sack, Santa can't make another sack. This sack is made from the swaddling that the baby Jesus was wrapped in. I've never heard of that before as a concept, but I thought it was kind of sweet. And I think a nice way to bring in the religious aspect of Christmas. Of course, if somebody's not religious but they celebrate Christmas, they may not like that part. But for me personally, I rather enjoyed that. And the reason there's a problem with Santa's sack is because Krad is not a nice character. Krad is the person who Santa would go to give out the coal. But unfortunately for Krad, Santa has decided he doesn't want to give out coal anymore, and Krad's furious. So he obviously takes revenge and takes Santa's toy bag to stop him from being able to deliver all of the presents to the good little boys and girls. And Sophiana and the elf team up to try and resolve this problem. I enjoyed the narrative well enough. When I said that it's not really one that I found that engaging, that's true, but I still appreciate how creative it is. I think we have a really good cast of characters. It's also occasionally quite funny. I feel Brad Garrett, who works as a character called Charlie, had a lot of the funny lines. A lot of the comedy, I think, came from him. But I think every character had an interesting enough role to play. We had a good mix of characters and personalities, and honestly, there's nothing specifically wrong with it. I just think that it's one that would have appealed to me more as a child than it does now as an adult. This was released when I was about 15, and I don't think I'd ever seen it before. Certainly, it's not one that I remember, and I think given the quite unique narrative, I think I would have remembered it. So it's okay, the narrative develops quite well. I think there are a lot of really strong points with the narrative and with the characters. I think one of the reasons I didn't completely fall in love with it as well is the fact that the animation style is not completely to my liking. There's nothing bad about it as such, but it's just not to my taste. So while I enjoyed bits of the narrative and most of the characters, well, probably all of the characters, obviously there were some characters I liked better than others, but I didn't feel like any character was underdeveloped or didn't serve a purpose or anything. But the animation style just wasn't to my liking very much. And that's not really a bad thing with the film. It just depends on personal preference, and it definitely isn't my personal preference. Nevertheless, I think visually it did look okay in terms of the color palette. It was a consistent style. The characters had a pretty decent design to them if that's your kind of style. So that's just worth bearing in mind that if you don't like the animation style, it may not be the best film, but it was watchable. I enjoyed bits of it. Definitely would have preferred it more as a child, but I didn't mind it. If, like me, you love Christmas animations, then I'd say watching it once is a good idea. Christmas is Here Again is one I didn't mind watching once. I certainly didn't mind the time spent watching it. No regrets there. Would probably never watch it again, but I'm quite happy to recommend it.